our panelists to the Q&A tab. Panelists, we ask that you follow the 7-minute time allotment so that we stay on schedule. There will be 2 verbal warnings given 2 minutes and 1 minute prior to the close of your allotted time. Please use the warnings to begin wrapping up your presentation. Thanks everyone for participating today. And I now want to hand you over to our moderator of the next session, and that is Mr. Daniel Jumondi, the Executive Director for Global Peace Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby. And once again, I welcome everyone all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. I know we have logged in from different parts of the world. Some in the US, you know, it's still late in the night there. I know all over Africa. So I have the pleasure to welcome all of you to this Global Peace Leadership Conference, Africa 2020. As you may have known, we planned to host this conference physically in Kenya, but due to the pandemic, we have had to resort to this new normal, and here we are today. And this conference is a testimony that the world is a global village, that wherever we are, whatever happens to us, you know, I think humanity has a capacity to be able to find ways in which to maneuver. And that's why we are here today. We are able to connect digitally and be able to conduct our business. And here with us today, we are joined with by speakers from all over the world. You know, we have with us Archbishop Jackson Ole-Sapit, who will start us off with an opening prayer. We also have President Jim Flynn, who is the president, international president of the Global Peace Foundation. We also have Dr. Manu Chandaria, who is an industrialist and patron of the Global Peace Foundation in Kenya. We also have from the UN, Mr. Sid Chatterjee, a good friend of the Global Peace Foundation, who is the country resident coordinator of the United Nations in Kenya. We are joined from Uganda by Honorable Muruli Mukasa, who is the Minister for Public Service of the Republic of Uganda. He is here on behalf of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who hosted this GPLC in the year 2018. We are also honored to have Reverend and Dr. Samuel Kobia, who is the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC. We also have our partner, Mr. Orlando Lyomo, who is the CEO of the Standard Group PLC Kenya. And we are very honored to have this partnership with the Standard Group. We have with us Dr. Esther Mushemi, the CEO of Samchi Group. And next, we also going to be hearing from Ambassador Fred Goga, who is the head of Conflict Prevention and Early Warning Division of the African Union. I'd already introduced Archbishop Ole-Sapit, but then we will be joined by this Cabinet Secretary for Devolution, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, who will be able to, give closing remarks and to declare this conference officially open. So, ladies and gentlemen, to start us off, it is my honor to welcome the Archbishop Jackson Ole-Sapit to give us opening prayers. Welcome, Archbishop Sapit.
Thank you very much, and thank you all. Let us bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we adore you. We worship you this morning for giving us this space and time to celebrate your goodness, your merciful hand upon us, to celebrate our fellowship together despite the sparse in terms of space and location in which we're all speaking from. But you have gathered us this morning to share on this important topic of peace, leadership, and development of our people. We want to thank you, Lord, for each one of us, and we pray that the contribution you're going to make in our presentation may bring sound mind in this period where the world is needing desperately a leader to show people where to find hope, even when hope is elusive. Lord, we pray that you are going to use each one of us in all our sharing and contribution to stir up a renewed spirit of wanting to stick together and grow together in a harmonious world where peace Lord, will be the anger of our lives, where harmony, where we can all join and become one people to fight for everything that comes against humanity and other forms that destroy our environment. So Lord, be with us. Lord, use us to have each one of us insight and foresight in all our discussions, and all our viewers, Lord, may be able to find hope even in this discussion. May this conference, oh God, bring renewed hope for unity, for peace in our world today and in our nations. This is our prayer, oh God, as we begin. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Your Grace. It is now my honor to invite the president, the international president of the Global Peace Foundation, Mr. James P. Flynn, to give his welcoming remarks. Welcome, President Flynn.
Greetings from Washington, D.C. On behalf of the Global Peace Foundation, our co-conveners, the Standard Media Group, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and other valued partners, I would like to welcome all of you to the 20 Global Peace Leadership Conference online. The founder of the Global Peace Foundation, Dr. Hyunjin Preston Moon, also extends his heartfelt best wishes to all the distinguished speakers and the over 1,000 participants from around the world. At the Global Peace Convention 2010 in Nairobi, co-hosted by President Kibaki and Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Dr. Moon introduced the important framework of moral and innovative leadership, which has been central to all our convenings and is for this one as well. The need for moral and innovative leadership remains as relevant on the global stage as ever, as we navigate the challenges and seek creative solutions in the current global pandemic. This GPLC examines the theme, Transforming Societies for Peaceful, Sustainable Peace and Development. That requires educating and empowering people to be creative, responsible, and productive citizen owners, working together for the greater good. Leaders add value by proactively building peace at every level, and then harnessing best practices to transform societies to be stable and prosperous. This is vital to realizing an African renaissance as envisioned over 70 years ago. Today, we see tremendous efforts undertaken by the people of Africa, stepping forward to solve local and regional problems, often in ways that can have global impact. We have experienced such leadership in the numerous online forums and webinars organized by GPF and our partners over the past 4 months, engaging over 20,000 participants in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, and beyond. I want to thank all of our partner organizations, speakers, and organizers, and with special thanks to our GPF Kenya patron, Dr. Manu Chandaria. Likewise, our sincere thanks to each and every one of you for participating in this important Global Peace Leadership Conference. I hope you will find the discussions today and tomorrow informative, stimulating, and beneficial to your work, and that this convening will be a valuable catalyst for meaningful advances in education in Africa and globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Flynn, for those remarks all the way from Washington, D.C. It is now my distinct honor to welcome the Global Peace Foundation patron in Kenya, Dr. Manu Chandaria, to be able to give us his opening remarks. Welcome, Dr. Chandaria.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Manu Chandaria, and I'm the patron of the Global Peace Foundation, Kenya. I welcome you all to this Global Peace Leadership Africa Virtual Conference 2020, under the leadership of, and further, either through your computer or through your phone or through your iPad. The subject of the conference is transforming societies from sustainable peace and development through moral and innovative leadership. It's very important, moral and innovative leadership in education and in peace building. This year also marks the 10th year since we hosted the Global Peace in 2010, and I was the co-host at that time, under the leadership of the third president, His Excellency President Mai Kibaki, and therefore a fitting that we should take this conference as a commemoration of the Global Peace Foundation convention, which was held in Mombasa, in Nairobi, where thousands of delegations from all over the world came to Nairobi. The second virtual conference for the world in 2020, the world, in the Nairobi GPLC was followed. Previously, we had a conference in Kampala and hosted by His Excellency, the President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, which brought together the regional leaders and the delegates. Over the past few months, we have seen how digital technology helps in the fight against COVID-19 virus. Therefore, hosting this hosting this conference at this particular time through virtual way is the only way that we thought the best way to reach to as many people as we can. And it's also, the virtual conference is a demonstration that humanity must find new ways of reaching out to one another, to contact business, to wherever they're presented with unexpected challenges as which we are going through, and such as COVID-19. And the 2020 virtual conference is coming when the world is grappling with a pandemic. And we draw the experience and expertise of diverse people who will be able to speak up and tell us exactly what do they think about this. And we should discuss the solutions and transforming the education. And this is the most important part. How do we going to change the education? And the principal part within the education is that we have given the moral and the value education as a second, number two, rather than as a main subject. I think it's necessary now that we bring a moral education on the value education as a principal subject with all other subjects, because it is now necessary that our people must realize that there is no way, if such incidences do happen, then we need to stand up to all this. And I think that the education system must change, and it is a possibility now. So with that, the peace will prevail. And the peace is a principle. There cannot be any argument against it. I think all of you, I wish you well and enjoy your conference, but take away from it what is good for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charia, for those remarks. Next, I will invite Mr. Sid Chatterjee, who is the resident coordinator of the United Nations in Kenya. Welcome, Mr. Chatterjee.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I just hope that I'm loud and clear. Greetings, Jim Flynn. Greetings, friends in the United States, in Uganda, the rest of Africa, whoever is here, and our esteemed colleague, of course, Manu Chandaria, who has really been a beacon of support, of wisdom in driving the agenda of peace, not just in Kenya, but all over. So let me start with a quote from the UN Secretary General when he said that the world is in pieces and we need world peace. It's a very poignant remark given the fact that post the Second World War, this has been the largest number of displaced people that we have seen. Close to 75 million people are fleeing conflicts, fleeing instability, fleeing the ravages of climate change, fleeing poverty. And every other day on the Mediterranean, we are hearing of boats which are capsizing and families and communities who are drowning simply because they're trying to get away to Europe and to the United States, seeking a better world. And perhaps when the UN Secretary General talks about the triple nexus of humanitarian action, of development, of peace, and the three of them are contiguous to each other. They can't, one reinforces the other, and they have to be applied together. And that is why it becomes even more crucial, as we've seen what the COVID-19 pandemic has done. It has upended concepts of universal health coverage. It has upended, where we thought countries which are the most advanced and robust and had the most, had the health systems have started to crumble. An invisible virus so virulent, so vicious, which has really taken us back economically to a condition that rivals the Great Depression that we saw. So essentially, the wisdom of peace, the wisdom of collaboration, the wisdom of unity becomes even more crucial when we are actually confronted by the sword of the Damocles of the COVID-19 virus. Who would have thought that suddenly, in a matter of months, we would stop shaking hands with each other, we would wear a face mask? So it is clear that a united world, a world that brings everybody together, a world where we don't discriminate on race or religion or caste or creed, because this virus has flattened regardless. It's not about the survival of the fittest or the richest. It really has flattened everybody. And this is not going to be the last pandemic. There's more to come. This time we need to be better prepared. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, the famous flu, often referred to as Spanish flu, though incorrectly it had nothing to do with Spain, killed close to 50 million people and infected close to 500 million people all over the world. So what we are confronted with today is a crisis, a health crisis. It's a public health emergency. It's a development emergency. It's a humanitarian emergency. In fact, it threatens our very the system of life. And therefore, the crucial nature of us being able to respond collectively to this great threat will mean that we have to break down the silos that divide us. And we've witnessed breaking down of silos here in Kenya last year, in 2018, in 2019. I was with CS Eugene Vamalva, who you will meet here. And thanks to the Global Peace Foundation, we actually had a global leadership conference in Kampala, Uganda, where a conversation started at a very initial stage, a year before last, at a very initial stage. And the conversation was all about how do we focus on one of the most left out, marginalized, an area afflicted by internecine violence in the area of Karamoja. And that conversation soon turned into something really tangible and robust. a one-year journey that started then in July of 2018 culminated in the president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, coming together in Karamoja in a place called Moroto and signing an MOU. Now, these are communities which had seen clashes on the absence of enough of water and competing over fodder. You know, there was a state of grave internecine violence which was constant and ever present, upending lives and livelihoods, education, and not allowing children to achieve their full human potential, and getting dragged into deep poverty, instability, hopelessness, despondency. So what that did was those of us who were present there to witness this particular event, and from the Kenya side, we were led by none other than the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution, Eugene Mamalwa, who you will see later. The wisdom, his energy, and from the Uganda side, the Minister for Karamoja Affairs, Mr. Byagabambe. I mean, it was just amazing to see two leaders bring their leaders together, the governors of these areas, the communities of these areas, the elders of these areas, all coming together and knowing fully well that this is the time to set aside differences, because those differences are keeping them stuck in that particular time zone. It was like as if time had paused in their lives. In chronic deprivation, poor health outcomes, poor access to water, lack of education, and an entire area of the Karamoja, which is so rich in soil and so many opportunities that it could actually turn the Karamoja area itself, could turn into the breadbasket of the rest of Africa. That is the potential of that area. So it was just incredible to see the leadership coming together and looking at this. And 2 years before that, where we did something very similar in the northern part of Kenya, a place called Moyale, between Kenya and Ethiopia, a cross-border program that started there, where close to 33 different clans were at constant war, constant conflict, constant instability. So what it showed was we need three Ps, P as in Papa, P, the alphabet, in order to move the agenda forward. And the first P is political will. What Kenya, what Uganda, what Ethiopia have shown is just by political will, the paradigm can be changed. The situation of status quo can be breached. The second P is how do we get the right public policies in place? And that is why the partnership between organizations such as the United Nations, the Global Peace Foundation, under the leadership of the government, getting civil society, getting other multilateral partners, donors into the same frame is where we will start to see evolutionary change happen. So therefore, the public policies that need to accompany it are absolutely going to be crucial. But the third P is vital, and that is about the sustainable goal number 17, which is about partnerships. And it is the unorthodoxy. The UN Deputy Secretary General often reminds all the resident coordinators in all the countries that we are present in 129 countries, ladies and gentlemen, flip the orthodoxy. It can't be business as usual. If we just keep doing the same thing over and over again and pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, we brought water to 10 villages and we made sure that 1 million children were immunized. Where we have to make an impact is at scale. How do we impact the lives of millions and billions of people who feel left out, who feel marginalized? Therefore, the Sustainable Development Goals becomes an ideal vehicle to make sure that we are able to do that. But we cannot progress if we are going to be in a state of conflict, in a state of instability. So what Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia showed was actually it's possible if we want the Africa Free Trade Area to survive, thrive, and move forward. As President Kenyatta said, we will only prosper when we actually see the free movement of goods, services, and people. Ladies and gentlemen, look at what happened in Europe. Once the European Union took shape, once there was free movement of goods, services, and people, lives changed. There was an improvement in the quality of life. People started to prosper. This is the moment of Africa, the youngest population in the world. The median age of this continent is 18. It is where the future consumption and production is going to happen. The parts from where Jim Flynn is sitting, all of Northern America, if you look at all of Europe, if you look at the Asian tigers, you're looking at what is called a demographic echo, which means populations are aging there and you have a young population here. Take, for example, the median age of Kenya is 18. The median age of Sweden is 47. So I'm just giving you a correlation of what the prospects are. But what it will mean is making sure that the partnerships that I spoke about are engendering peace, because that becomes one which provides the foundation for economic growth, for prosperity, for opportunity. There is one critical dimension. In order to achieve what is called a demographic dividend or take advantage of this youthful population, we need to make sure that we achieve 4 E's now. The first E being education and skill sets. It's not about getting a master's degree in contemporary history or that. We need skill sets, education that is applicable to the current emerging economy. So getting the right skills is going to be crucial, and there should be it should be absolutely clear whether you're a farmer or you're a nuclear scientist. In Europe, there is no differentiation between those two roles. In fact, probably the farmer may be richer than that of a scientist. It is that dignity of labor that we need to understand. We need everybody on the table. The second is empowerment. Africa will not progress unless we have equality of gender, which means allowing every girl to achieve her full human potential. What happened in Europe? When the man and women were working together, they went out to work, they were able to plan their families, they started to get more income, there was disposable income, the children had a better education, better nutrition, better opportunities, and therefore you saw human capital growth. Household income started to improve. Do you know why that happened? It was as a consequence of the famous Spanish flu and a consequence of the Second World War. The women had to take over the roles of what the men used to do because the men were at war. So it's quite fascinating that out of that deep stress that Europe went through came out an opportunity of equality. We can learn from that, but it is going to be absolutely crucial to ensure that we have equality of gender, where men and women are treated equally, where the Sustainable Development Goal 5 does not become one of symbolism and a slogan, but an absolute reality. And I think I'm confident in Africa it's possible. In a country like Rwanda, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, we are already seeing Rwanda has close to 66% of their parliamentarians are women. They have equality in cabinet. Similarly in South Africa, similarly in Ethiopia. We are seeing increasingly more and more ministers who are women. We need women's leadership in the political space to make sure that we are able to achieve that kind of equality. The third is employment. Now, we need employment like the Marshall Plan that was applied to Europe to enrich Europe.
1 minute remaining.
How many?
1 minute remaining.
Perfect. So we need a Marshall Plan, which is capable of generating that kind of employment. And the fourth is equity. The moment people feel they are left behind, the moment they feel they've been left out of the development curve, they feel that is the cause for discord, for instability. So peace becomes the driver of that change. And therefore, if we are to reap the advantage of what Africa has to give in terms of a youthful population, a land of plenty, then we need to transform the way we do business. We have to forge new partnerships, public-private partnerships, look at Africa as an investment destination, and that is the way we will start to change it. And I, as a resident coordinator, feel privileged that I actually work and serve in a country which has a president who has that kind of vision. And we've seen the kind of transformation that has happened in Kenya. The region itself has a great promise in the horizon. And I say this with a deep sense of conviction because I've seen the transformation of Kenya since 2014.
Time is up.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm done.
We can move to our next speaker, and that is Honorable Muruli Mukasa, Minister for Public Service, Republic of Uganda.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We go to the Pearl of Africa, Honorable Mukasa. Karibu sana, Waziri.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Flynn, President, Mr. Chatterjee, the UNDP representative, and His Grace, the Archbishop, and Mr. Dr. Chandaria, dear panelists, dear participants, greetings to all. I would like, first of all, to express our deep thanks to the Global Peace Foundation for hosting this very, very important conference. The timing, really, of the conference is right. Indeed, as we talk now, societies are transforming. In other words, experiencing fundamental changes. And the process of transformation is not without challenge, though, and conflicts or contradictions. These call for careful thinking through throughout the process so that there is bedrock peace. And peace should be a state where the society or the groups or the individuals and communities experience really no destructive situations, incidents in their lives. They're able to have a satisfying existence throughout their lives. Now, the process of transformation will inevitably lead to development. Yes, if all the factors are carefully handled, and development will undoubtedly create a qualitative and quantitative shift among individuals, among communities, among countries. In other words, there should be a shift from a lower state, often underprivileged, to a higher and better privileged state. Now, in terms of economic well-being, say in the case of Uganda, it is hoped that, in our National Development Plan 3, that the Ugandans will move from a status of poverty, subsistence, to middle income status by 2026. In other words, every Ugandan on average should be able to earn at least $10,000 a year. And this should be buttressed by developments in infrastructure, socio-economic infrastructure, and they should deepen good governance, democratic practices, national integration, and Pan-Africanism, and most important, security. Values too are important in all these changes. Also, moral values, and I think these the moral values are paramount. Development without the proper moral values is indeed dangerous. In Africa, we are generally guided by what has been termed as the Ubuntu philosophy. And in other words, in all the developments, the human being is at the center. Life of the human being is paramount. And whatever is done should not degrade the life of the human being. To achieve this, the extent that it is acceptable and practiced as second nature or just unconsciously, education has a very important role to play. It's very important. And it must prepare the leaders. It must prepare the community, the people, to think, to be creative, to acquire skills, to have the morals, and to champion and practice them, and to go about the business of life in peace. Despite the diversity of the world communities, they are universal human values. And these, of necessity, must be refined and taught and practiced. In the end, the saying that the world is a global village will become really a practical reality. It will be a village, a world where we live in peace, we value each other, we work for a collective good, and we constantly transforming and developing until this world actually will become heaven on earth. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for keeping time. Okay. Let me step in to assist my co-host. Oh, I see he's back online.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Mukasa. Thank you so much for those remarks. Moving fast, I will now welcome the Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, who is the Chairperson of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission of the Republic of Kenya. Welcome, Dr. Kobia.
Thank you very much, moderator. Mr. Jim Flynn, President, Global Peace Foundation, Dr. Manu Chadaria, the patron, Global Peace Foundation, Kenya, fellow participants and fellow panelists, all participants from across the globe, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and pleasure for you to have heeded to our invitation to join us in this conference. When people like yourselves who have passion for peace create time to think and deliberate about a peaceful world, one gathers a lot of hope for the future. And that is what we feel about this conference. Needless to emphasize it, because others have already done so, we are facing unprecedented moments with a global pandemic that does not only have health and economic implications, but has also socially affected every aspect of our lives. Although it has imposed several challenges on us, this tough time has also given us room to return to the very essence of humanity. It has made us acknowledge the significance of our individual actions to global sustainability. What we must do for sure is to turn COVID-19 challenges into peace opportunities. Turn COVID-19 challenges into peace opportunities. Therefore, we should explore concrete and actionable ideas on how we can emerge stronger and more resilient. Indeed, this virtual conference is one such creative solution that is reaching many across the time zones. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya, like many African countries, is a multi-ethnic society. Our founding fathers fought for liberation of our countries and rallied us to value one another through the philosophy of Pan-Africanism and Ubuntu, or Utu in Kiswahili. Nevertheless, conflicts have fractured our societies along ethnic lines. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission was established in 2008 to address this by promoting equality of opportunities. And that's one of the most important mandates that we have. We also have to promote peaceful coexistence and harmony among Kenyans. While I acknowledge that conflict is part of human life, I encourage us to respond to it constructively. That is why this conference provides a platform to generate ways of enhancing peace and social cohesion in the socio-economic and educational sectors. Dear friends, the pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on the most vulnerable of our society, including the poor, women, street families, and the people living with disabilities, to name but only a few. Indeed, COVID-19 has widened social and economic inequalities, thereby undermining the overall goal of social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. It is the responsibility of government agencies to ensure that these inequalities are breached. NCIC is promoting equal access to public resources and services by advising government agencies to increase access to development in different areas and access to opportunities. As COVID-19
to go.
Okay, as COVID-19 cases continue to rise in Kenya, community conflicts are also still going on. Suffice it to say, the ability of our countries to bounce back after the pandemic is hinged on our acknowledgement and the complete exercise of personal responsibility. Therefore, each one of us, regardless of our race, religion, ethnicity, rank, or social status, owe a duty to fellow humans to keep ourselves and our neighbors safe. Finally, brothers and sisters, I wish to take this opportunity to appreciate all of you for taking time to be part of this conference. Heightened solidarity is needed if the world is to defeat the crisis. I therefore appeal to all of us to embrace peace and cohesion at community, national, regional, and even global level. Always remember, peace is the way, not the destination. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, and thanks to the NCIC for partnering with us to convene this conference. I'm sure we'll be working together to ensure peace and national cohesion in this country. Next, it is my honor to invite Mr. Orlando Lyomo, who is the CEO of the Standard Group PLC Kenya, who has been also our main partner in organizing this event. Welcome, Mr. Lyomo.
Thank you, Daniel. Co-moderator. James Flynn, President, Global Peace International. Dr. Manu Chandaria, Patron, Global Peace Foundation, Kenya. My fellow eminent panelists, greetings, and to all those who are participating from around the world. This conversation is very interesting, and I think I like what I'm hearing so far. And I would like to just probably summarize my comments from an angle of media, because they are the media partner. I believe we can add more value by focus on that space. We are talking about sustainable development, and sustainable development basically is that development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generation. When we look at development today, especially in countries that are developing, one of the biggest conversation points is resources. We know that for any country to develop, resources are required. In most of the cases, we've seen that resources tend to be scarce, and when resources are scarce, what you end up with is situations of either conflict or skewed developmental patterns, where you find some regions are more developed than others. Our belief as a media organization is that we have to participate in a way that will ensure that when we are talking about sustainable development, the whole country is a beneficiary. It's interesting to know that today, any organization or any country, where we are or where that organization is or where that country is a cumulative aggregation of all the decisions that have been made in the previous years, in the past, by those who came before. And today we are gathered here and probably are going to contribute into making decisions that will affect the next generation. So it's critical that when we have these conversations, whether in conferences or in government offices or in institutions, in corporate institutions, that the decisions we are making actually do contribute to sustainable development for future generations. As a media organization, we believe that our role can be collapsing, and I'll try and collapse it into 3 areas that can support sustainable development, and that can support moral and ethical leadership, and that can also support peace. Remember, scarcity of resources has always been the source of wars, or conflict, or dispute. So peace itself can be an extract of proper development. Now, the first thing we need to focus on as media organizations is to create awareness. A lot of times we've seen that awareness is the lacking ingredient in many solutions. We tend to ignore the role of awareness when coming up with a lot of decision-making points. But I'll try and just indicate that for us to be able, for instance, to achieve peace in a conflict zone, why is awareness critical? Because people need to understand why the problem started. People need to understand the benefits of not being in the situation they are in. People need to understand the benefits of taking a certain path as opposed to the other. Now, if you look at the comments that I can attribute to Mr. Wijayananda Jayawera, who was the UNESCO Director of Communication, he said that communication is a means to sustainable development, but not an end in itself. Awareness can only come through proper communication, and communication is what media organizations do best. So today, even as we discuss issues around peace and development, as we discuss issues around ethical leadership, we can say that communication or creation of awareness becomes a very critical ingredient. The second thing I can say is that when it comes to awareness, we can move away from the political aspect of awareness and look at the developmental part of awareness. There's research across the globe that shows that media has been used to propagate better practices, to push for better development. A study in India was able to actually show that media was successfully used to change behaviors when it came to backyard poultry farming. And this led to change of negative attitude. Another study in Benin, in Africa, on rice, found that by farmers just watching instructional videos, they were able to actually achieve better yields. That is significant because you're talking about 67% better yields just by people watching instructional videos. Here in Kenya, we've seen situations where radio has been used strongly to push for certain advocacies, and that has led to behavioral changes. So we want to use awareness to make sure that the work being done by government, the work being done by development organizations, the work being done by all partners who come to try and make sure that we have a peaceful coexistence, that we have a developed country. Those who need to hear it so that the message is the same across. And so is the case today. We're in a pandemic situation. We have the COVID-19 ravaging countries across the world. We have people losing jobs. We have people losing their loved ones. However, today, one thing that might be lacking is information that can lead to positive behavioral change. We know that this pandemic will not be beaten purely by government putting in restrictions. The responsibility goes on to the individual citizen. But how do you change the citizens' perspective to the pandemic? It has to be messages that appeal to their behavioral patterns that can be destructive and that can promote this pandemic. The second one, and I believe this is very common, is of course advocacy. We think that and do believe that for peace to be sustained, for development to be sustained, advocacy is important, because advocacy then leads to right decisions being made. It leads to the proper institutions being put in place. Advocacy leads to the right laws being drafted. And sometimes advocacy can also lead to elimination of negative practices in society.
2 minutes
Finally, I believe that one of the biggest things we have to do is to drive accountability. Today, we can sit as panelists, we can sit as government heads, we can sit as corporate heads. We know that sustainability is not just about government. Corporate world companies come in, they take resources. How do they deal with the environment? How do they ensure that the environment is a better place? Accountability is key. And I believe that we have to be able to hold all and sundry accountable. If you're a corporate organization that's polluting the environment, you must be held accountable, because that pollution is going to affect sustainable development. If it's a government, we want to hold leaders accountable for the things they promise, for the things they do, for the things they say they want to see. Because once you start holding people accountable, then you can change behavior, then you can influence direction, and possibly you can be able to see things changing for the better. So in my opinion, in terms of achieving sustainable development, in terms of achieving peace, in terms of achieving educational institutions that create innovation, media has a big role to play. Media has to rise up, and media has to ensure that we are not just reporting what is happening, but we are actually participating in providing solutions. And I think that's the big transition that we have to make. We have to stop being the reporters and start participating in this change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Orlando Lyomu, the CEO of the Standard Group PLC, for that a really very insightful presentation. And I want to thank you on behalf of the team for your generous contribution. And we would like to partner with the Standard Group, moving forward to be able to create a better world. Next, I'm calling now the only lady in the panel who has enabled us to achieve gender balance, Dr. Esther Bushemi, who is the CEO of Samchi Group Kenya Limited. Welcome, Dr. Bushemi.
Thank you so much. And let me start by acknowledging and appreciating the Global Peace President, Kenyan patron, Dr. Shadaria, Country Director, Daniel Juma, fellow panelists, and those people who are listening and participating in this conference. I come from a background where I am an entrepreneur, and I think a homegrown entrepreneur, knowing that I, like any other Kenyan girl or woman, was brought up in a local village, educated in the local schools, went to the local universities, and today, here I am. And so I want to represent people perhaps who have a background like I have, and to say that there is hope. And there is hope for Africa, there is hope for Kenyan. And the topic we are dealing with today is about peace, and it's about morals. And I strongly do believe that we must start putting the subject of morals at the forefront of whatever we do. Whether it is in economic empowerment, whether it is in the creation of wealth, whether it is in the politics, I think we need to agree and come to a position that we need to evaluate what is the moral position that we are holding in certain matters. Why do I say that? Because morals, you cannot exactly teach morals per se. Having said that, I come from a generation where we did a paper in school that was called Christian ethics. And as much as we do not practice it A to Z as it is, in our conscience, there is something that tells us that there are certain things that are wrong because we are growing up, it was engraved in our minds that certain things are not right. So we grew on that, and today you still remember, even when you attempt to do something against certain morals, there's something that tells you you are not doing it right. When we come to the economic empowerment, because I do believe if we do not address the economic empowerment of our nations, there is no peace we will ever achieve. Because peace is not necessarily, does not necessarily lack because of the guns that we take. That is just a result of what has not happened in the society, and therefore people have picked guns or their picked stones or whatever is available for them to express some dissatisfaction that is already in the society. And one of the greatest dissatisfaction that could be in the society is the economic part of the society. And for me, I really want to address it from a youth perspective. And why is that important? Because African population, I am told, more than 70% of the population in Africa, in Kenya, is made up of the youth. That is between 18 and 35. Because of that, whatever we want to do, if we want peace in Africa, if we want peace in Kenya, and I'm being biased now because I come from Kenya, we must pay attention to the young people.
You have 1 minute to go.
And those young people are the youth, and we must know how do we empower them, how do we create wealth around them. As we do that, I do believe we must create wealth from a value-based perspective. In fact, I would love to see where we create wealth based on value. It's not good enough to have a lot of wealth that ignores certain values. For example, the value of honesty and integrity. There's no point of creating wealth that does not have an underlying value of honesty and integrity. What about fairness and equity? As we create our wealth, do we have a value of fairness? And for me, God above all. And why do I say that? Because there is a higher power that controls every human being. And that power we must respect, even as we do what we must do. Therefore, this is what I will conclude and say. Morals and economic empowerment are key and fundamental if we want to achieve peace in our country. I'll also add this: innovation without morals will be dangerous for Africa of the world. Perhaps we have now been given an opportunity, due to the COVID that we are dealing with, to sit back as people and ask ourselves, what is the best way forward? But I believe we must, and we are being called out as leaders, to chart a new way, morally, economically, the innovation, for us to enjoy the peace that we so much crave for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Innovation without morals is very dangerous for Africa. Very, very clear message coming to you there from Dr. Esther Mushemi from Tamchi Group Limited. Thank you so much. And next, I'm gonna now go to Ambassador Fred Goga, who is the head of Conflict Prevention and Early Warning Division of the Africa Union. Welcome, Ambassador Goga.
Thank you so much. I will try to be brief because I've seen that we're running out of time. So thank you for Global Leadership for inviting me once again. It was a great pleasure for me to join you the last time when we had the meeting in Uganda. The theme of this year is timely as we continue to grapple with the pandemic that has disrupted our world and challenge even the way we look and challenge even the way we look at life. Just yesterday, the Africa CDC announced that Africa has recorded 871,970 cases and 18,475 deaths. So which means that Africa is getting closer to 1 million cases of infected people with the pandemic. What is important? What is it that we value? What deserves our time? All of these are questions that resonate in many people's minds as we battle an invisible enemy that can strike anywhere, anyone without notice. Allow me to make 3 points. First, in this environment, moral and innovative leadership is particularly needed in education and peace building. Moral, because we need a leadership that is driven by a set of values that put our common humanity first. I insist on our common humanity first because we are seeing, unfortunately, and particularly on our continent, a rise in hate speech and the tendency to dehumanize the other. What is unfortunate is that this rise in hate speech is no longer being pursued by uneducated people. It is unfortunately being pursued by young men and women who have been exposed and educated and who should have freed themselves from the shackle of tribalism that held back their parents a long time ago. The other one is innovative leadership, because all our formulas have been challenged and we need creativity to ensure that our core is not lost in these turbulent times. We also need leadership because moments of uncertainty, we all look for a compass that can guide us. Secondly, we have always believed that the best education starts at dinner tables, the education we give our children. Those values that we instill in them that then guide them in a classroom or in life. This pandemic is an opportunity for leaders to utilize creative, constructive means, employing and transformative techniques to deliver better. Online education is becoming the norm, but let us also not forget that internet accessibility is only possible for a small fringe of our societies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we need our education to produce what we call servant leaders. These servant leaders who will transform self-love into empathy and work to serve their communities and better. Lastly, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. If anyone needed a reason to stop fighting, this is it. We have currently 35 conflicts ongoing on the African continent, about 26 border disputes. So great is the threat of COVID-19 to life and livelihood that it should dwarf the reason parties in conflict put forward to continue fighting. We are all in this together, whether we are government, whether we are opposition, or whether we are civil society, we are all in this together. Let me conclude by saying that we need to seize this moment and come together armed with values that recognizes our humanity and deliver the Africa we want, the Africa we so long for. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador Ngoga, for that presentation. I now move very, very quickly to Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit to make his presentation. Welcome, Your Grace.
Thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you all for this important discussion and session. I want to begin my presentation by looking at leadership in relation to global peace and development. So I want to tie in the leadership to global peace and development by discussing this key important question on leadership. And I'm basing my presentation on two very recent engagement I had. One is last year. I gathered a few leaders. I hosted them for breakfast, asking this one pertinent question. Are the people we are leading prospering, or are they getting worse off in life? What prompted me to ask this important and critical question is, I have been asking myself, what is leadership about? Why are leaders appointed, elected, or selected? Why are they elected by people to lead them? It is for them to make decisions to prosper the people they have been called to lead. And therefore, when I was looking around, I could see more desperation among people, which the very leaders are leading, including myself in the church, hope is diminishing, a state of hopelessness is creeping in, and that was before COVID-19, and I know now COVID has made it even more worse because livelihoods have been shattered, businesses, employment, many people have lost employment. And therefore, this question is more even critical today than ever before. Are people we are leading prospering, or are they getting worse off in life? And the answer to that question was not one straight answer. It is a question that every leader should be asking himself or herself, because leadership is about decision making. And therefore, what decisions are we making as leaders? And one thing that has come out of that meeting was the division of the leaders in terms of viewpoint, the lack of vision that rally people behind a vision, the lack and clarity of where are we taking people that we are leading, became very evident that we are not discussing about the future. We are not talking about 10 years to come. We are not talking about 5 years to come. Everybody is talking about now and today and what I can get for myself. And therefore, that became very, very critical that are we leading people somewhere, or we are just wasting their time going round and round. Key things that emerge is that transformation or leading people for better, things that some of the things that actually are impeding that is disharmony, lack of vision, access to resources, which have already been discussed about, distribution of the same resources, and therefore the question of justice, fairness arose. Are we just? Are we fair in access and distribution of resources? And all this went back to the very leadership: who make decision, who gets what, and how they get it. Is it fairly? Is it by just means? That now brought the next question: why do people get into a state of hopelessness and therefore degenerate into disruption of peace? So it is the very access of resources, fairness, justice. And what I want to call us today, for the world to have peace, for nations to have peace, such as Kenya, for regions to have peace, because I'm right in the middle as I speak to you in Narok. We had an area that has a lot of disruption of peace, that is between the border of Narok and Bomet, and it's all a competition of resources. I'll share about that. But the very thing is, are we just, are we fair in distribution of these resources? In the policy making situation where we are making policies, yesterday, the day before yesterday, in our Senate, where resources has to be apportioned to various county governments in Kenya, we saw a lot of acrimony in terms of decision making by those very leaders. How are those resources going to be distributed across the country? Was there fairness? Was there justice? And you know, this now will make people feel, others feel alienated, and others feel entitled. And how do we fight this spirit of entitlement or the spirit of alienation, that people feel we are alienated and others feel we are entitled, because that is a very big source of conflict. That's how we begin to fight each other, we begin to chase each other. And therefore, as I share, I just want to draw attention. We had a peace building, and I thank God because Professor Dr. Kobia, Reverend Kobia was with us, and NCIC, and what came out of the report that the team on the ground between two warring communities in Narok and Bomet was actually the question of land. How do we own this land? How did we access it? How are we? Some are saying we are entitled to it. Some are saying you are not entitled because I bought it with my money. This is all the question of access and distribution of the very resources. And therefore, I want to urge all of us as leaders, are we leading people towards harmony, towards peaceful coexistence? And I think the question to the areas to look at, what decisions are we making as leaders, both religious, national leaders, political leaders, leaders of organizations and companies, in the way we distribute resources to people, in the way we make them access, in the way we create awareness, and share the important information that people need so that we disarm people with this issue of alienation or entitlement, because the feeling of I am alienated from what I am rightfully mine, or the feeling that I'm entitled to this has been a major source of conflict world over, and particularly in this country, in Kenya. Therefore, let us look for solutions. How do we address this fairness, this justice in the way we distribute and make resources accessible to people in various places in our world today? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Grace, for that wonderful presentation. Now, I would like to basically acknowledge that we have received so many messages of goodwill, from all over the world, from all over Africa. We were expecting also the CS for Health, Honorable Mutai Kagwe, but he was not able to come, but he sent some message, which probably later on I'll be able to read to you. But we have the only Minister for Peace in Africa. That is Honorable Miss Muferihat Camille. She is the Minister for Peace in the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, and she sent us this message. Please listen to her message.
Salam, Tina Sterling. Greetings of peace. On behalf of the government, the people, and the Ministry of Peace of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, I'm pleased to warmly greet you at the opening of the virtual Global Peace Leadership Conference 2020. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank and congratulate the International Host Committee of the Global Peace Leadership Conference 2020 for organizing this virtual conference with the theme Transforming Societies for Sustainable Peace and Development through Moral and Innovative Leadership in Education and Peace Building. It's unfortunate that I'm not able to meet with you all in person due to the COVID-19 pandemic challenge. As a young adult, I never pictured myself being involved in national matters that required me to take leadership roles. Even now, I'm often humbled to be leading the first of its kind Ministry of Peace in my country at a time where we are transitioning into a new era. This position comes with the great responsibility of achieving and nurturing a nation with sustainable peace. In the world today, we are realizing that taking peace for granted leaves us to deal with devastating impacts socially, economically, and politically. That's why at the Ministry of Peace, we strive to promote mainstreaming of peace in the daily lives of each and every individual. For peace begins within oneself. We believe that peace is holistic as it thrives through our relationship with those around us, as well as blossoms through our relationship with environment and even with Mother Nature. Sustainable peace in a nation means that there is a feasible chance for development in all spheres, including education. I would like to express the heartfelt solidarity of the Ministry of Peace with the Global Peace Leadership's mission of transforming education and promoting sustainable peace throughout sub-Saharan Africa. There is a famous saying in my country, "Dirbiabir ambassa yasir," that translates to, when the spider webs unite, they can tie up a line. I believe that standing together and joining our hands as Africans is the key to a better future for our continent. Also, the world is faced with both man-made and natural disasters that shake the foundation for peace. We, particularly Africans, need to strengthen our unity because African unity is not simply a dream, but a goal that can be achieved so as to transform and lead the continent towards a better tomorrow. I would like to end my remark today by reiterating that peace is not a mere absence of war. It begins within oneself. Let's all mainstream peace in our daily lives, in our development planning and implementation. Wishing you a very successful conference. I look forward to receive the proceedings. May peace prevail in Africa. May peace prevail in the world. I thank you very much. Stay healthy and safe.
there you have it, perhaps Africa's only Minister for Peace. That tells us maybe we need a Minister for Peace in Kenya. Thank you so much. We look forward to working with the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. I know there's a little bit of happenings there, but Global Peace Foundation will work closely with you to be able to help you to stabilize your country. So thank you so much, Honorable Camille. So I want to turn it over to Abiagina. We want to have a brief session of question and answers. So Abiagina will conduct that. And then I will call upon Honorable Eugene Wamalwa to give his remarks and officially declare this session open. So before that, Abiagina, over to you for the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jumondi, Executive Director for Global Peace Foundation. And to all our panelists, we thank you for your insightful and uplifting sentiments. And right about now, we want to take a few questions from our participants who are following on this conversation from across the world. And I'd like to begin by putting our first question. And the question is asking, Dr. Manu Chandaria talked about transforming the education system to be able to combat the new and upcoming challenges. Someone here is asking, how can we decentralize Africa's education system to ensure total inclusion of marginalized groups? Allow me to take two more questions before the panelists can respond to this. The other question coming in is asking, evidently, communities have no or minimal knowledge of the SDGs. How do the conveners of this Noble Conference plan to intensify their efforts so as to reach people at the grassroots level? And let me take the last question at this point. And the other question that we have here is, how can we utilize this present pandemic to the advantage of peace building? What can we do as peace agents in this present reality? I'd like to open up this Q&A session to all of the panelists, but for the question that was directed to Dr. Manu, I'd like him to go first, then we can have the rest respond.
This is, I think it's interesting. Yesterday or day before yesterday, India, after 32 years, decided and published the new policy on education. The question is that we just take it for granted that we got a policy and we continue. We must have now education policy which is meeting with the time. And today's the incident of COVID-19 that we are going through is so critical. It's almost after 100 years that we have seen an epidemic of this nature. So there's no thinking about it. All we've got to do is to see how can we just have morally upright children, right from the day one. That's number one. Number two, digital education. Unfortunately, in the morning, one of my pages of my speech flew away, so I couldn't speak it. But digital education, which is a reality today. Every university today is online. And I think that unless and until we start that with the youngest children, I'm very surprised that I've got a great-granddaughter, 18 months old, plays with an iPad. And she knows exactly how to send out the emojis and, and she listens to the music. It's surprising. So I think that digital education is a must, a subject which should be introduced. Now, we don't have to go and think about how we are going to do it, when we are going to do it. This is a compulsory and necessity which we have to face.
Thank you, Dr. Manu Chandaria. I'd like to just engage with the seed from the United Nations on the question around how do we get this peace building efforts to the grassroots level. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, as well as Mr. Orlando Leon.
Well, thank you. And I think that's a very, very important question. Often, peace is seen as a movement of just mere interaction of political leaders. No, that is why I quoted the example, and in the chat box, I've left some links of the cross-border program between Kenya, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda. What the leadership of the two countries did, what the maturity and the wisdom of the politics of all the three countries did was, we ensured that we engaged with the local community elders, the people that are actually involved in the conflict in the first place. Now, I'll give you an example of South Sudan. There was a peace agreement which was at the highest level, but it did not translate into the ground level. It did not translate into the communities. And therefore, when 2013 things broke down, you saw again the resurrection of a protracted conflict. Whereas when you get communities involved, and that is why I commend Ethiopia, and I've just heard the minister having a ministry of peace, fundamentally it's the micro, it is what we do at the community level, how we prevent it, whether it's cattle rustling or the scourge of violent extremism, it is communities that can do it. When the UN Secretary General was here last year in 2019 for the launch of the Prevention of Violent Extremism Conference in Kenya, hosted in Nairobi, it was remarkable. We actually went to a county in Eastleigh, a place called Kamakunji, which had seen, major challenges of violent extremism, and yet we saw under the leadership of Yusuf Hassan, a local MP there, how he's brought the different elements of this, how he's made young people feel more included. And we need to be mindful. The fact that we have such a young population, we have to invest in young people, invest in the knowledge of peace. So that peace needs to get integrated from the household to the community to the school curriculum and has to keep advancing forward. That will define the success of the Africa Free Trade Area. Over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Orlando Lyomu.
Thank you, Abby. I think Sid has addressed quite a bit of it, so I'll just add a little to that. I believe that if you want to in peace, or if you want to eliminate conflict, to get these messages to the ground, the first thing, of course, is to understand the source of the conflict. Because sometimes you can't prescribe a solution to a problem you don't understand. I think I call it understanding the lay of the land. Why are the people having the disputes? Why is there no peace? So identifying the source of that and trying to address it, if possible, to eliminate that becomes very critical. And that's why you find that in some cases, elimination or taking peace to the ground or ensuring communities exist harmoniously has involved actually leaders going to the ground, meeting the different sides and ensuring that there's dialogue. Of course, the second thing, in my opinion, is that a lot of times you find that information is a key ingredient, either in driving conflict or in bringing peace. So if you send out information that is inflammatory, then people's passions rise. And when people become passionate, sometimes reason becomes scarce. That can drive conflict. So how we communicate, we've seen cases where leaders are recorded and probably quoted communicating things that simply inflame passions, inflame passion. So I think even as media organizations, we have to be careful about what kind of information we allow to go out. Yes, we are not supposed to be the quality control people, but if we think that this is going to inflame passion, then we have a moral responsibility to say we are not going to allow that to go out. So I believe that we have to ensure that we identify the reasons, prescribe the right solutions, and most importantly, avoid communication that can drive a wedge between societies, and in the opposite, drive communication that can bring cohesion.
Thank you so much to the eminent panelists. And at this juncture, because of time, I urge our fellow panelists that the questions have been coming in thick and fast, and we do hope that we'll be able to tackle them offline. Because of the intricacies of time, I'd like to hand it back to my co-host, that is Mr. Daniel Juma, to invite the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Abiogina, for the questions and panelists for the answers. Now, because of time, it is my distinct honor to invite Honorable Eugene Ludwig Malwa, who is the Cabinet Secretary the Ministry of Devolution and ASAL. Honorable Omalwa represented President Kenyatta in 2018 when we had the GPLC in Kampala, and he read the president's speech. And it falls upon him again today to be the one to officially kick off this conference in Nairobi. So thank you so much and welcome, my friend, Honorable Omalwa. Please give us your speech and officially open this conference. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Daniel Jumondi and Abby Agina, very able moderators and fellow participants. I'm indeed very pleased to join you this afternoon and to thank the organizers of this conference that aims at transforming societies for sustainable development through moral and innovative leadership in education and peace building. Indeed, as Jumondi has said, the last time we met, we were in Kampala, Uganda in 2018, and we're very, very pleased to have been part of that historic conference. And we had just come out of a very difficult election in Kenya that year when I was sent by His Excellency the President to represent him in Kampala. And indeed, we were very grateful that we received a global acclamation of the leadership provided by our President and our former Prime Minister for the peaceful handshake that they had in March 2018 that restored peace in our country. I think that was one thing we're celebrating then. And also during that conference, we really thank the Global Peace Foundation for the support that they gave us, both the government of Kenya and the government of Uganda, in the peace building efforts we are making along our borders as we launch the cross-border peace program, particularly in the Karamoja cluster, where we've seen communities for years fighting over limited resources, particularly the Turkana, the Pokot, the Karamoja. And that conference actually led to the peace accord, as Sid has ably advised on the matter, in Moroto last September, where we signed the accord between Kenya and Uganda and before our two presidents. Today, I'm very, very happy as we meet here for this conference again to thank those who have supported peace across our borders and those who have, through innovative leadership, looked at how we can turn our borders from barriers to bridges of friendship and brotherhood, where we want to see more cross-border trade instead of cross-border conflict. So some of these issues that we have implemented successfully in the last 1 year comes out of that very able leadership of our two presidents, President Museveni and President Kenyatta, the UN, our partners who have supported us, and I thank Sid and his counterpart in Uganda, to enable us reach where we are. Today, as we meet for this conference, I must say we've made great strides towards peace. When we talked about peace in Moroto last year, we looked at Kobebe Dam. We had drought from 2017, and our communities fought over the scarce resources. And because of the leadership of our two countries, we were able to have our people from Turkana, our pastoralists, crossing into Uganda, all the way into Kabong, into Kodipo, all the way to Kobebe, where we have a dam. We were directed as ministers by our presidents to ensure that we come up with peace dams along our borders, fashioned along the Kobebe Dam, where we saw very many people from Turkana camping for scarce water resources during drought. As we speak today, we are happy that going into September, as we celebrate the anniversary of the Moroto Accord, we will be going to Turkana to launch a new dam that we constructed over the last 1 year. There's a similar dam in West Pokot County, a similar dam in Marsabit County, and we are happy that our brother Beba Gambi, the minister for Karamoja, has done equally well across the border. So as we meet here today, we want to see, to also celebrate 10 years, and we thank and congratulate the Global Peace Foundation, because when President Kibaki presided over the peace conference in 2010 August, It has since taken us 10 years to today as we meet in this conference. So we have something to celebrate and marked improvement in peace building, not just in Kenya or Uganda, but across the globe, and particularly in the African continent, where we've seen a lot of conflicts. So we celebrate that also, but for us in Kenya, we also celebrate our constitution. In 2010, when President Kibaki launched the conference, we were then also promulgating our constitution today that has seen devolution, bring resources to marginalized counties, that has also resulted in peace building in these areas. So we are very, very happy to be part of this very progressive leadership. Also, we want to say that as we move forward, we remember what Dr. Hyun Jin Moon called the moral and innovative leadership during the Nairobi conference. Jumondi, you remember what he said. And we have borrowed from this to see how we can bring about this innovative leadership, to look at the scarce resources that are there, particularly in our marginalized counties. And as we speak today, apart from the 3 dams, we have major water projects in areas like Urum in Turkana, in areas like Nassau, where we have already constructed these dams. So we want to see how we can work on this. Equally, because we have, because of displacement following conflict along our borders, we want to thank our partners, because we have come up with programs that bring communities together. And in particular, we want to thank the World Bank, because we have the NAIDI program that has seen resources come to marginalized counties, where we have refugees in Turkana, we have refugees all the way in Wajir and Garissa. And under Kenya Dr. Deep, we have a program of almost 10 billion that's going into these counties, particularly targeting the women and the children. We are also looking at the youth so that we promote SMEs. We are looking at about 1.5 million Kenyans, particularly women and youth, who are going to benefit through boosting their livelihoods through this program. So today, as we meet, it's not the drought situation we faced when we were in Kampala. From drought, we have had floods. From floods, we have had locust invasion. And as we speak now, we are facing COVID-19. So what are we looking at? We are looking at a situation where we are reminded of our common humanity. So even in the crisis that we are facing, there's something positive that reminds us that we are all God's children, no matter which continent, no matter which race, age, or region or religion you come from. We are all mortal and are faced with the disease. We all fall sick and we all die. And we must now come together in building new partnerships, both locally and globally, to be able to ensure that we confront this enemy that is facing us today, which we must either overcome or be overcome by it. So that partnership that we're building, even as we look at peace, we must look at how this can be achieved. So we are happy to welcome you to this conference, to also have a forum where we can share experiences. And in spite of the commonality of our challenges today, we also see new opportunities, and we see new partnerships between government, private sector, with the faith-based organizations. We are very happy to have Manu Chandaria and all those industrialists who are there that we are working with closely from private sector to be able to build partnerships to confront this invisible enemy that we face today. So we want to thank you and be very, very grateful to have been given the opportunity to participate in this very important conference, which I wish to officially declare open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. And at this juncture, I take the opportunity to thank all the panelists who have presented here today, for their beautiful words. And I want to reiterate from what Honorable Wamalwa said, that we are all God's children. Dr. Henry Moon said we are one family under God. So wherever you are, wherever your circumstances, whatever your circumstances, just know that we have a shared connectivity. We are all human race, and we are all God's children. So thank you so much. I now turn it to Mr. Abiagina to move us into the next session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jumondi. And clearly, it is a new world order that requires clarity, actionable ideas in driving peace across the globe. We thank the panelists as well as all the participants for making time to join us for this very important conversation, and we do appreciate your input. And at this juncture, I just want to share a poll that was conducted when we started, just to show you the degree of participation so far. From Kenya, we have had strong participation over 51%, Nigeria 10%, Tanzania, we didn't have much participation, Uganda 7%, Africa and other, we had 6%, in Europe we had 3%, India we had 6%, North America we had 7%. Well, it is at this point in time that I'd like to pave the way for the next session that is coming up. The next session that we shall be having has run a bit late with a few minutes, and it will be focusing on transforming education during and post coronavirus pandemic. Well, I thank you all and do have a beautiful afternoon.